Good afternoon. My name is Tom Dalt, and as the current Environmental Management Representative for Ferrero Brantford, I will be walking you through today's training video that will take a look at the Environmental Sustainability Program for our factory here in Brantford. In October 2014, we successfully attained certification for ISO 14001. Now, as I'm sure most of you remember, ISO 14001 is a standard that provides the framework for organizations such as ours to demonstrate their commitment to the environment by reducing harmful effects on the environment. Our certification is part of a company-wide group certification that encompasses many of the Ferrero plants worldwide. In order to help guide our environmental programs, we have developed an environmental management system, or EMS for short, that encompasses both the Ferrero Group's requirements as well as our own local requirements. This EMS allows us to manage our program in a comprehensive, systematic, planned, and documented manner. Now, as a cornerstone to all of this is our environmental policy. It refers to the commitment of our organization with respect to the laws, regulations, and other policy mechanisms concerning environmental issues. The environmental policy can be found throughout the facility, from the environmental communication board outside of the main cafeteria, to reception, to security, the lunchrooms, department communication boards, and so on. It is a short document but touches on many important points. The environmental policy states that Ferrero Canada Limited is committed to the concepts of sustainability and environmentally responsible food manufacturing. We are committed to comply with relevant environmental legislation, regulations, and other requirements. In an effort to better meet the general principles of its commitment, Ferrero Canada Limited has adopted an environmental management system certified in accordance with ISO 14001. Through the implementation of the EMS, Ferrero Canada Limited intends to promote pollution prevention and the continual improvement of the environmental performance of the plant by meeting the following objectives. 1. To apply the best available technologies when defining new projects and operational programs. 2. To guarantee an efficient use of energy, materials, and natural resources. 3. To make responsible and reasonable use of water. 4. To minimize our impact on the environment as a result of the activities conducted at our facility. Ferrero Canada Limited will pursue continual improvement by measuring progress, where feasible, to its environmental objectives and targets. Adherence to this environmental policy is expected by all of Ferrero's employees and external contractors. This policy will be updated annually to reflect Ferrero Canada Limited's commitment to the environment. From this policy, we can take away 4 main points. The first and foremost is that we adhere to all legislation and regulations, as these are laws which, if not followed, can lead to fines and other legal repercussions. Secondly, the environmental policy highlights that we are focused on our commitment to the continuous improvement of our processes to be environmentally friendly. How we operate and maintain our machinery can play a big role in the impacts we have on the environment. The third point the environmental policy hits on is that we review the objectives and targets we set for ourselves to make sure we are following through with our goals. The environmental management action plans we put into place track people, tasks, and timelines. In meeting with the department UGP managers, as well as other supporting Ferrero team members in the environmental sustainability team, we review and update key performance targets routinely. What the final main point of the environmental policy states is that we strive to implement technologies and processes that support pollution prevention. Later in the training, I will discuss some of these technologies and processes that have been recently implemented or are currently in development. Next, we will take a look at the 4 significant environmental aspects of Ferrero Brantford. Number 1 on the list is water consumption. Water is one of our most precious natural resources, and it is important not to waste it. Water conservation at Ferrero can be achieved by controlling wash cycles on machinery, not being excessive in the use of water in the manual wash bays, reporting faulty taps and toilets, installing aerators on hand wash stations to limit the flow of water, and the list goes on. Number 2 on the list of environmentally significant aspects at Ferrero is energy consumption, both electrical and natural gas. The extraction and manufacture of these natural resources, the delivery of these natural resources, and of course the use of these natural resources all have detrimental effects on the environment. To reduce our energy consumption, we can report idling machinery, reduce our compressed air usage and report air leaks, execute routine maintenance on machinery to ensure optimum performance, and through just being aware of how we use energy, we can often find new ways of conserving it. Number 3 on the list of environmentally significant aspects at Ferrero is waste generation, both hazardous and non-hazardous. Non-hazardous waste can more often than not be recycled. Being aware of the different waste streams in your department and what the different colors of bins and bags represent for recycling purposes is of major importance when it comes to diverting our waste from landfills. Hazardous waste, on the other hand, is not something that we can recycle, so it is important that if you have to use any hazardous chemicals, it is best to use them in moderation as much as possible. Attention to standard operating procedures where hazardous chemicals are used can go a long way in preventing overuse. Lastly, number 4 on the list of environmentally significant aspects at Ferrero is chemical handling, use, and disposal. When dealing with chemicals, it is important that we store, handle, and dispose of them with strict accordance to company procedures. Different color codes of cabinets for chemical storage, and having dedicated locations for hazardous waste pickup and disposal in each department are 2 of the controls we have in place for this. As well, spill kits are available throughout the plant should a spill ever occur. If you do not have spill training, report the spill immediately to your team leader. Chemical storage, as previously mentioned, is an integral element of chemical use. Throughout the facility, you will see many different cabinets and many different colors. It is important to know that the yellow cabinets are strictly for the storage of flammable and combustible materials. You may see them in many different sizes, but if they are yellow, they are all for the same purpose, flammable and combustible storage. A list of these chemicals and aerosols can be found outside the cabinet, and if unsure, please ask a team leader. What you will also see, albeit in less abundance as the yellow cabinets, are green cabinets. They are specifically for corrosive and toxic chemical storage. It is important not to place chemicals in the wrong cabinet, as this could lead to a fire, explosion, or release of harmful gases. Hazardous waste satellite locations are located throughout the plant in each department. If you are responsible for disposing of any type of hazardous waste or hazardous waste container in your area, you will be made aware of the satellite location and proper procedure for disposing of it. Under no circumstances should you ever dispose of hazardous waste in the regular waste bins located throughout the facility. Should you ever encounter a spill, it is essential to contain the spill if you have had proper training in doing so. Spill kits are located throughout the facility for this purpose, such as the one pictured here. It is important to keep the spill from entering any drains or sewers. It is also important that the spill is reported to a team leader and myself so that the proper reporting of the incident can be done. Focusing even further on what you can do as a team member to help in minimizing our environmental footprint, we will take a look at environmental aspects. First off, what are environmental aspects? They are actions your department does that have an effect on the environment. Whether big or small, these actions have been identified by experts in your department and then rated according to several variables, such as severity, likeliness of occurrence, if a regulation is being violated, etc. The aspects that have the biggest score are then deemed significant, and actions are put into place to see if they can be eliminated or at least diminished. Operating as a team, the role you can play is to help in identifying these environmental aspects and mentioning them to your team leader. The more eyes, ears, and minds put to this, the more aspects can be recognized. Going hand in hand with environmental aspects are the associated environmental impacts. What are environmental impacts? They are how the environment is affected by our actions. It is one thing to say that we know our actions affect the environment. However, it is another thing to understand how specifically we're harming the environment. Whether it be air emissions, noise pollution, solid waste, liquid waste, wastewater emissions, land contamination, stormwater discharges, resource utilization, or any combination of the aforementioned, it is important that we know our impact. After identifying and understanding our environmental aspects and impacts, we can then develop operational controls as means to alleviate any negative effect we may be having on the environment. These controls can include training, standard operating procedures, engineering design, changes in our processes, and implementation of a new technology, etc. Putting into practice and maintaining these operational controls is a team effort that includes you. Wow, Tommy boy, thanks for that information. Very informative. Anytime. Moving on, we can take a look at some of those technologies I had mentioned earlier that we have either implemented or are in the process of implementing that support pollution prevention. In 2014, we began running our new cogeneration plant over in the utilities building. With it, we have cut in half our consumption of electricity from the grid. It allows us to produce electricity very efficiently and use the heat produced as a byproduct to further produce steam, hot water, and even cold water via our absorption chillers. To give you a quick idea of how the turbine operates, we can take a look at this short video from the manufacturer.
Here's how a turbine works. Air is drawn into the engine and compressed as it travels through a series of rotating blades. The compressed air then passes into a combustion chamber where fuel is added, ignited, and burned, producing hot gas. This hot gas expands across the turbine rotors, driving a shaft that powers the turbine's air compressor, as well as driven equipment, such as a compressor, pump, or electrical generator.
Moving forward, our next big investment will focus on the wastewater we produce on site. The biological contaminants and fats and greases that we produce as a derivative of our production will soon be treated with the installation of an anaerobic membrane bioreactor. The end result will be clean water that falls below the bylaw limits set by the City of Brantford. In closing, our efforts with the environment extend beyond the workplace. Our effort or lack of effort today will echo into the generations that follow us. When you hear of the polar ice caps melting at rates faster than ever predicted by scientists, when we watch a species go extinct at unprecedented levels, when we hear of mass deforestation and land erosion, when we witness the pollution of our waterways, lands, and air, and when we experience weather extremes intensifying yearly in proportions unparalleled in the natural history record, we cannot deny the effects of mankind on the environment. We must do our part because we are obliged to, as custodians of this planet, the only planet we can survive on, our home. The consequences of doing otherwise are only just beginning to be felt. Thank you.